Join me as I dive into some powerful Bible verses that will challenge me to surrender fully to God and uplift my faith like never before. Surrendering to God is a theme that I think many of us can relate to, but it's also one that can be difficult to put into practice. When we think of surrender, we often think of giving up control, and that can be a scary thing. But the truth is, surrendering to God is not about losing control, it's about gaining freedom. It's about trusting that God's plans are better than our own, and that He wants the best for us. When we surrender to God, we open ourselves up to a deeper level of faith and trust. We begin to see that God is not just a distant figure, but a loving Father who is intimately involved in our lives. And that changes everything. It changes how we approach our daily struggles, how we respond to trials, and how we live our lives. Surrendering to God is not just about getting what we want, it's about getting what we need. And what we need is to be in a right relationship with Him. When we surrender to God, we're not just saying yes to His will, we're saying yes to His love. We're saying yes to the freedom and peace that comes from knowing that we're not in control, but God is. But surrendering to God is not easy. It takes courage, it takes trust, and it takes a willingness to let go of our own desires and plans. And that can be really hard. We like to be in control, we like to know what's going to happen next, and we like to feel like we're in charge. But the truth is, we're not in charge. God is. And when we surrender to Him, we're simply acknowledging that reality. Many of us struggle with surrendering to God because of doubt. We doubt that God is good, we doubt that He has our best interests at heart, and we doubt that He's really in control. We doubt because we can't see the future, we can't see what's going to happen next, and we can't see how things are going to work out. And that doubt can lead to fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, and fear of losing control. We also struggle with surrendering to God because of fear. We're afraid of what might happen if we let go of control. We're afraid of what people might think, we're afraid of what God might ask us to do, and we're afraid of the unknown. And that fear can lead to paralysis. We can get stuck in our fear, stuck in our doubt, and stuck in our need for control. Sometimes we struggle with surrendering to God because we think we need to have it all together. We think we need to have all the answers, we need to have a plan, and we need to know what's going to happen next. But the truth is, we don't need to have it all together. God does. And when we surrender to Him, we're simply acknowledging that He's the one who has it all together, not us. We also struggle with surrendering to God because we're afraid of what it might look like. We're afraid of what our friends might think, we're afraid of what our family might think, and we're afraid of what others might think. But the truth is, God is not concerned with what others think. He's concerned with what's in our hearts. And when we surrender to Him, we're simply saying yes to His love and yes to His plan. As we struggle with surrendering to God, it can be helpful to turn to the Bible for guidance and encouragement. There are so many powerful verses that remind us of the importance of surrendering to God and trusting in His goodness. Let's take a look at a few of them. One of my favorites is Romans 8 verse 28, which says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." This verse is such a powerful reminder that God is always working for our good, even when we can't see it. Even when things are hard, even when things are difficult, God is still working for our good. Another verse that I love is Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6, which says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight." This verse is such a powerful reminder to trust in God's plan, even when we don't understand it. Even when we can't see what's going to happen next, we can trust that God's got it. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 is another favorite of mine, which says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." This verse is such a powerful reminder that God's plans for us are good, and that He wants to prosper us, not harm us. He wants to give us hope and a future, not take it away from us. Psalm 46 verse 10 is another powerful reminder to surrender to God. It says, "Be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations, I will be exalted in the earth." This verse is such a powerful reminder to be still, to stop striving, and to simply trust in God's goodness. As we look at these Bible verses, we're reminded that surrendering to God is not about losing control, it's about gaining freedom. It's about trusting that God's plans are better than our own, and that He wants the best for us. One powerful story that illustrates the transformative power of surrendering to God is the story of Abraham and Isaac. You may remember the story. God asks Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac as a test of faith. And Abraham, in obedience to God, is willing to do just that. But in the end, God provides a ram instead, and Isaac's life is spared. This story is such a powerful reminder that surrendering to God doesn't mean that we'll always understand what's going on. It doesn't mean that we'll always know what's going to happen next. But it does mean that we'll always trust in God's goodness, even when we can't see the way forward. As we reflect on the transformative power of surrendering to God, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts. Surrendering to God is not just about getting what we want, it's about getting what we need. And what we need is to be in a right relationship with Him. We need to trust that God's plans are better than our own, and that He wants the best for us. As we surrender to God, we open ourselves up to a deeper level of faith and trust. We begin to see that God is not just a distant figure, but a loving Father who is intimately involved in our lives. And that changes everything. It changes how we approach our daily struggles, how we respond to trials, and how we live our lives. Let's recap some of the key Bible verses we looked at today. Romans 8 verse 28 reminds us that God is always working for our good. Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6 reminds us to trust in God's plan, even when we don't understand it. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 reminds us that God's plans for us are good, and that He wants to prosper us, not harm us. And Psalm 46 verse 10 reminds us to be still and trust in God's goodness. Finally, I want to invite you to share with me in the comments below about your own experiences with surrendering to God. What has been your biggest struggle? What has been your biggest triumph? I'd love to hear about it. And if you're looking for more uplifting content, be sure to check out my other videos. Thanks for joining me on this journey today, and I'll see you in the next video.